Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside.
And outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
I now have the pleasure of introducing Amy Pierre-Russo. Amy has a background in HR and leadership coaching. She's built a work-life harmony coaching practice that helps mom disrupt the hustle cycle and replace it with intentional harmony. She does this through one-on-one coaching and the Harmonious Mom Community, a space designed to help mothers pursue their goals without taking a back seat to everyone else's needs. Overall, her work focuses on helping women create space for what matters most: quality time with family, tending to their own mental and physical well-being, and nurturing their ambitions so they can build a legacy they're worthy of. She believes moms don't need to be told to do more. They need a space, resources, and the support to intentionally leverage what they're already doing more fully. Welcome, Amy. It is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Herb and Christina, for one thing, for creating this platform in the first place. But of course, thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. And I was excited to have you come on because, we talk a lot about the homeschooling space. We talk a lot about staying home with our kids and stuff like that. But on the other side of that, we also have a set of parents who are like, how do I balance my job, my career that I really do care about, as well as those kids that I care so much about and want the best for both? So this is going to be an important conversation about how we do that. So why this passion? Why are you in this space right now? And what was maybe a pivotal point in your career or your life that said, you know what, I need to share this with more people?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Honestly, my time in HR led me to find that as people had responsibilities outside of the workplace, they had, children that they were taking care of, parents who are aging, all of these things that I truly feel make you more well-rounded, have more skills, more effective in so many ways. Yet in the workplace, sometimes it led to kind of taking a step back, not being as competitive in your role as you once were. And I just feel like that shouldn't be the case. Over years, watching the data, I would watch people's peers get promoted over them. I would watch the pay gap grow, and I got frustrated of seeing this cycle. So that's what really prompted me to first jumping into life and leadership coaching and getting certified there to start. And over years of business coaching, I really felt like it's so much emphasis on work at the emphasis of it all. We need time for high quality relationships, for nurturing our own well-being. And so that's what inspired me and just completely sparked passion around work-life harmony.
And that is such a beautiful space to be, because a lot of people, like you said, is like, the work, the career, go, go, go. But then our focus kind of changes a little bit and shifts a little bit, especially whenever we have our kids, or like you said, the aging parents. So one of the things that we talked about in the pre-chat a little bit was, how do we help these people, these moms especially, jump in and maybe either make space in their work and career, or how do we, yeah, let's start there with the work career. What can we kind of do to balance that a little bit and understand that we don't have to have as much pressure there?
Yeah. And it really is. It's all people. I sometimes emphasize the moms because nowadays data comes out that even if a mom is working full time as the breadwinner, they still carry about 76% of the mental load of managing the household responsibilities. So of course I tend to, emphasize that. But of course this applies to parents, this applies to all people in caretaking roles. And the first thing I always start with emphasizing is to get clarity about your vision for your professional life, what your ambitions are. And it may sound simple, but I think in the hustle of all of the managing other people's needs, of thinking about the meals, the day to day, we can sometimes get lost about thinking really clearly, defining what it is we have a vision for with our professional goals. And without that, it's really difficult to find people to support us with making it come to life. Whether that's your managers, your team, support systems. And sometimes it does get a little strategic, like you may need to amplify support systems at home to help you have the time and space to pursue your professional ambitions. And so without the clarity about what your goals even are, it's going to be really difficult to do that.
So I worked for a company for just under 14 years, a pretty big company. And when I left, it was like nobody there followed up with me. I gave so much to that company. And when I left, again, it's like I realized that they didn't care about me. So one of the things that we bring up with families when they start entering into our world is that your kids care about you. Your job doesn't. You might care about your coworkers, but when that ends, it's like those people tend to fall out of your life, and your kids are going to be there. Your family is going to be there. So one of the things that when we start, again, with our parents, we talk about family values and how to because so many people say that their family is their most important thing. But then when you look at what they're doing, that's not really the case. Their actions don't align with their values. Are you seeing that? Is that part of your process as well to talk about that? Because again, people do value their work, and work is important to keeping a family together. But to give everything to work at the detriment of your family is kind of what happened to us for a while, because it's like I thought that was important. But then when I left, I realized that I wasn't important to what was important to me. And part of my family didn't stick around after that happened. So can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And thank you for sharing your experience because it is so relatable. There's so many elements intertwined with what you're sharing because on the one hand, it's a realization that maybe the path you set out on, you doing so many of the things that you think you should be doing, and that's what I tend to hear a lot is like you stayed on this path, you did everything you were quote unquote supposed to do, and it didn't have the outcome that you wanted. So I think there is this like realization and also coming to terms with that and allowing yourself space to actually like, um, come to terms and grieve some like working towards something that wasn't what you actually thought it was for people who didn't care the way you thought they did. So yes, I absolutely see that. And then on the other side of it, you have your loved ones and the things that you say are priority, but it's not actually reflected in the way that we live out our lives. So these days, beyond my coaching programs, I actually do some done for you services and like build out some systems, especially for business owners, because I do think that that's a very real disconnection of you having this mental load and all of these things that, sometimes even when you are spending quote unquote time with your family, it's not quality because you're distracted by all of those other things you didn't get to. And so, really wanting to pay attention to that. What is your holding place? What are you eliminating from your schedule to make sure that when you are there with your family, you're actually there? And so the just acknowledging like the layers of all of this, it's one thing to free up time, but looking at your goals and the kind of displacing what doesn't belong and getting deep into where you're allocating your time and how you can physically and mentally be in the spaces that align with your values is a lot of the deep work that we do in coaching.
Yeah, especially once we got into entrepreneurship, because I realized this was happening. We realized this was happening. So it's like we need to step out. And so we got into entrepreneurship and started building businesses. And we thought, oh, our kids will see the hard work they're doing for them. And instead, apparently, what they saw was that we were spending less time with them because now outside of work, we were trying to do more work.
Yeah.
And I can see how even in your bio, you talked about how to get support for the moms, because as they're trying to go about their vision, how then do you spend the time with your family as you're trying to grow to take care of them? And
Mhm.
we definitely ran into that problem and didn't handle it very well.
Which is part of the reason we're doing this podcast, to get this out there. It's like, people, here we go. Here's some mistakes we made. Let's see if we can help people avoid some of it.
You make your mess your message, and we were trying to fix a different mess, and our life became a mess. And so
Yes.
now our message is your kids and your family is more important than the stuff you're doing outside of it.
Yeah. And a big thing that comes up in my work with my clients is the integration. We are doing so many things. And I think that it's one thing for our kids to see we're working hard, we're building a legacy. So much of our why is for our kids. And yet we forget to really pull them in. And so sometimes when I work with a client and they have their kid work on their social media or, be taking photos for their website, or even like putting together gift bags for a client appreciation event, it pulls them into the work. And that small shift can help them see, wow, like, this is what you're doing. These are the families that you're helping. This is the impact that you're having, that usually without that intentionality to pull them in, they just are unaware of what you're doing.
Right.
That is such an important example. And one of the things that I want, to talk about there is, the self-talk and the out-talk that you do, right? So when you're working on something and your kids are around and you say, oh yeah, I'm working on this today because it's going to impact a family this way, or I'm doing this today because it's going to impact this part of my business, and then we get to go do this. When they hear it, as well as get involved, like you were just saying, that is key, because then that connection, like you said, that intentionality is there.
Yeah, my son is actually, he's only 2.5 years old, but already I'm really intentional about that. And when I have to, leave him to go to an evening event or do a workshop, on a weekend or that kind of thing, I'm really intentional about building the excitement about that and saying, oh my goodness, mommy gets to do this work. I'm helping these other families, they're going to have more quality time with their own kids because of this. And even if he doesn't fully understand like the nuances attached to my work, he gets excited. And rather than it being this sad parting of ways, it's like this, oh, mommy, go, mommy, like, sure. Yeah. And I think that builds over time. I always think of it for myself and for my clients as we're not necessarily raising kids, we're raising future adults. How long do you really want them to have with these concepts that we're introducing to them?
Yeah, I was going to say that, we raised our children to be strong and independent, and we did a great job because our youngest son is strong and independent enough to take on life completely without us. So he's cut us out of our life because that aspect of you need to do this for the family, blah, 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 that was there. But the family cohesion, what you're talking about, bringing him into that with us. So I did my job. My kid is strong. He's out there and he's running his own life. He's just doing without us. And that kind of hurts. So this is, again, why we're here. And one of the things, and why part we brought you on, because even what you talk about is how to create the family life while you're doing this, so that you maintain that connection. You also maintain that family, not just raising of the strong kid.
Yeah, it's a beautiful point that you raised. And like, I can't help but emphasize the appreciation for your candor and for you letting people into your life and, what you've done, because I think that it's true. I think societally, even, we make this assumption that, like, oh, we'll get to that later. We'll have time later. And we forget to realize that, that might not be an option. People change, people evolve. Maybe they won't want to, engage with us in those ways by the time we're ready. And so I have this freebie that I offer, and I'll make sure that your audience has access, but it starts with a time tracker of our lives. How many weeks do we really have? And when you look at it that way, it's like we need to be intentional with these small moments along the way. They really matter. They add up.
When working with your clients and your families and things, what do you hear often, that it's more about the quality of time instead of the quantity of time that is spent? I mean, I just think about, we are, especially if you, like you said, they're living this dual life. They have all these things in entrepreneurship or business they're trying to do, and then they have only this much time for family or stuff. talk about that and give maybe our families a strategy. How can we improve that time together, or something that's really important to make sure that works?
Yeah. I would expand that it's quality everything. It's our relationships quality. Are we draining ourselves by surrounding ourselves with people who, aren't pouring into us, aren't understanding our mission, who we no longer align with? Are we surrounding ourselves with people who we've outgrown? And yes, it also applies to the time. How are we spending quality time and what's distracting us? Are we really staying connected to, yes, our values, like you've mentioned before, but also to our vision, to our bigger goals, and to our why? If we are doing all of these things, maybe for our family, for our kids, for our legacy, um, does it reflect in how we operate our day to day and who we choose to work with, and how we communicate our work? And that's become so much more important these days. People want to understand your business, why you're in business, why your work matters to you. And so it is those elements. And one thing that comes up to answer your question about like how we move to that place is over years of working with people, I've come up with this cycle that I call a simplicity cycle, where we literally have your automation, delegation, collaboration, and then elimination all in a chart, so to keep us from avoiding, if you think delegation is the way to simplify your time, or to not have to do everything on your own, but maybe you don't have a team, you don't have someone who works with you, there's no one there to delegate, but maybe you're a single parent. To really keep those other options top of mind and think about, well, can you collaborate? Can you be a guest on someone's podcast? And so that's a great way to share your work without taking it all on your own shoulders to get your message out there. And that really helps people, especially the elimination part of the cycle, because do all of the goals that you're working on really need to happen right now? And that's a huge thing where people come to me with their 3 year or 5 year plans, and they're putting so much emphasis on it right now today. So rather than doing that, what can you eliminate from worrying about right now so that you have space in your life for the day-to-day work, what you actually need to be working on, and also for your high quality relationships?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm not hearing you saying is how important money is to all of this. And so again, that's one of the things that in this society, in the way we're trained, is like, oh, but our kids have to have this next thing. Our kids have to be doing that. And one of the things that we're, yeah,
Mm.
the newest phone, the newest, they have to be fitting into this image.
Mm.
And fitting into that image, that perfect image, is taking away from the growth of their family. And
Mm.
so, and again, like with homeschooling, so many people's like, but I would have to give up so much
Yeah.
of my time to be able to homeschool. But what you're buying with that is basically an extra 17,000 hours with your children before they
Yeah.
turn 18. And
Yeah.
so are you willing to give up something in your life, that balance sheet, that checkbox? What are you willing to give up for 17,000 more hours with
Mm.
your children just in the first 18 years of their life? And so do you, and it sounds like you do, like, because it's, how do you find support? How do you get help? What's important to you? Does that come up in your work?
Yeah, I appreciate that's a very real, honest question that people must have in their minds when they're listening to all of this is, and then you need to actually pay your bills and we need money to live. That's the reality of it. And so I don't ignore lucrative work. I think it comes back to really like focusing in on that core goal that you're actually working on. I think for some of us, um, we clog our vision of what we want to build by thinking, oh my gosh, it needs to be so complicated and we have to worry about social media and all of these other things that get in the way. But the reality of it is when you're thinking about your goal, even the monetary goals that you're working towards, still including some of these other elements that I touched on when we're thinking about, the people you have around you, the high quality relationships that you lean on, the ways that you collaborate with people, and build out your support systems, because things like even homeschooling, are you doing that, entirely on your own? Are you building out a pod in your neighborhood with other families who are also homeschool, where maybe you can, like, share the load, you can do some phys ed activities together, you can coordinate a field trip, and it's still not all the weight on one parent's shoulders. And so finding the opportunities to do that and be creative with the ways that you buy yourself back time so that you do have time to allocate back in your business. And then, of course, things like allocating the automation of it all so that you are nurturing your clients and following up with people and reaching out to potential clients. Even if you're not online all day, you can leverage technology to your advantage.
I love that. Yes. And one of the things that popped in there is that technology question, right? And I was going to kind of ask it earlier as well, because, when we work for a company, a business, or whatever, it used to be that when you left, you might check your emails once in a while, but they didn't have your cell phone number. They couldn't text you. You couldn't, there was less connection between the workplace and the home place. And that's changed so much because now companies just expect that they can, like basically reach out whenever. How do you help families balance that? And like you said, how can we automate some of that technology, or is it just getting in the way more?
Good question. Sometimes it feels that way, right? Like
It
it's just
does.
your way. But I think that boundaries have become more important than ever. I get a lot of questions around boundaries, implementing your boundaries. Honestly, usually when I'm asked about boundaries, it's more of a communication matter than it is truly boundaries or someone infringing on our boundaries. And I say that, like, to your point about the question of like when you're going to be online, when you're going to be answering questions, when you're going to be, checking your email, responding to notifications, all of that. Even simple little things we do, like having in the footer of our emails, I'll be on from X time to X time. If you, send a note after these hours, please expect a response the following day. What a weight that takes off of so many of my clients, just to know this person, this person knows when they'll hear from me, unless it's something urgent. Same thing with voicemails. If someone leaves, like having your hours, communicating that on a regular basis. I think sometimes these days when we adopt the idea that we have to constantly be online and available, it it keeps us as a barrier from communicating what we're actually doing, and it kind of puts us in this mode of hiding. So I've had clients who say like they can't go away for a long weekend. They can't be unavailable for their clients or for their boss or whoever. And the truth is, like, are you actually managing the situation and communicating effectively? So if you say, "Hey, I'm away for on these dates. Here is your point person. I've, updated them on your account. This is what you can expect. Here's the lay of the land. I have a handle on things. You're not skirting out the back door and kind of trying to get away with something." That's made a huge impact for people to, like, have a weight lifted off of their shoulders.
So we often talk
I
about
love
having
that.
boundaries for children and
Mhm.
how important that is. And parents is like, oh, boundaries. But I explain boundaries like a tomato cage around a tomato plant. If you just
Mm.
plant a tomato, it just spreads out, it gets everywhere, you get small fruits, it's not easy. But you put a cage around it, you put the boundaries around it, and it's not so much preventing its growth, but it allows it to grow up. And so
Mm.
when I was hearing you say that, it's like, oh, you need to put boundaries around yourself as well, so that you don't spread out and you don't lose your fruit, and that you can also grow up through those boundaries. Sometimes you have to step out of them a little bit and then it comes back in, and
Mm.
that helps you grow to the light, and then you trim off the stuff that you don't need and it creates better fruit. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting because it's like we've applied this to parents and
And
how they can
kids all
work
the
with
time.
kids,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
now apply it to the parents and what they're doing within the family. I hadn't really considered it that way, but that is also so very much important. And that's what I was hearing when you were talking about that, is how boundaries aren't like this hard limit. It's a cage that allows you to grow up and out. So
I love that visual. Thank you for sharing that. And what you're sharing that makes me think of too is our kids are watching, our teams are watching, the people who look up to us are watching, and they see us implementing this cage around what we're doing, implementing this cage around ourselves. That's how they learn to do it for themselves. And so it's really important, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it so that you can role model this for others.
beautiful message.
I love that. Yeah, just boom. My brain was going off in the same way. It's like, yeah, Herb's gonna do the tomato cage. I love it. Let's give it to the parents, right? Make them responsible for it too. Oh my gosh, with that excitement. So, and I just lost what I was gonna say around that. Oh, the hustle culture, right? We are so often in this hustle culture. It, because the moms want all the things, right? I want my career, I want my kids, I want my family, et cetera, et cetera. And so then we put that hustle culture on ourselves and our children, right?
Yeah.
Think about this for a second. What is it doing to your child when they see you in that hustle culture? Is it a good thing? Is it a not so good thing? If we think about how we're stressed out and how we're like overdoing it, and now we're showing that to our kids all the time.
Yeah.
So help moms out here a little bit. How do we step away from that whole hustle culture a little bit and just enjoy those little times with our kids?
Yeah. Oh, it's a big one. We are so intertwined with this hustle culture and constantly needing to be on. We need to be intentional with walking away, avoiding disruptions, starting our days with quiet and calm. But these days it feels almost impossible for some people to really do that. I like to share in 1970, there was a Good Samaritan study that was done at Harvard University. They wanted to pick a really ideal target for this study. So they picked the theology department with people who were, studying to become priests. And so they broke the sample group into three separate populations. One had in more than enough time to get across campus to a seminar on time. With that group, over 60% of them stopped and did the right thing when someone who was in distress really needed some help. They stopped and they helped this person out. With the group that had just enough time to get across campus for a session, about 40% of them stopped and did the right thing. But with the group that was told that they were going to be late and they didn't have enough time to get across campus, only 10% of them stopped and helped and did the right thing. I always tell this story to parents because I ask them, like, which of these groups do you want to live your life in? How do you want to model for yourself? Are you going to be the person who stops and is even paying attention enough to realize that someone around you needs you? And in this example, they're talking about a stranger, but in your real life, this could be your child who needs you, who seems like they need to talk and you're not even aware. And so slowing down enough, allowing yourself enough breathing room in your schedule is only going to allow you to show up better and more present and aware and engaged than not.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
another beautiful message. And I'm glad that the study was done in 1970, because if it was a new study, I am sure right now that those numbers would be way
worse.
less.
Yep.
Because again, we've been taken out of that almost intentionally as a society. So and again, that's why we are bringing education home, because it's like we need to be re-bringing these ideas back into the family, back into the people, and to slow down, especially again within the family. So thank you for bringing that up as well. And I kind of lost my question in the middle of that too. Do you have one right now?
Well, I was just going to actually talk about another study that I read it and heard about, was that our kids right now, because of this hustle culture and parents thinking that they need all the best of everything and all the best experiences and everything, it shows that when the kids are in all those activities as well as school and everything else, that they're actually working, or working, being involved in like a 60-hour work week. We
Mm.
as parents, as adults, don't want to do that, and we know how that harms us. Think about your child without any downtime, without any quiet time, without any quality time with the adults that they need around them. If they're in this hustle culture of 60 hours a week of onness instead of being creative and developing, right?
It sounds weird, but there's actually a lot of parents that we need to say, you need to like step this back. You need to give your children time to be bored, time to reflect.
Yeah.
Boredom is an incredibly important thing for children. And if every time you say bored, you just next activity, next thing, and they never have a time to be sit and still and be human for a little while, and they're always just in this hustle and go, then that's how they're going to go forward, and they're not going to know any better.
Yeah.
Follow-up question with that is that you said moms and people need to make sure they have their own quiet time. Give us some examples, or give a mom, a parent, a strategy for how do we either create that or an activity that really helps us kind of settle in there.
How do we help our parents break out of that hustle culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that study too, Christina, because it's true. Like, we're so busy, and so much of my work is emphasizing the root cause of things. So why is that the case? Parents want to distract their kids because they don't even feel like they're safe when they're at school now. If they homeschool, that's a different case. But during downtime, they're on social media, which they're worried about the mental health, aspects and potential downfalls of that. Maybe they're playing video games, and they're worried about what that does. So they try to distract them with, all of these different activities to be involved with. And so it's not that people are doing anything wrong. They're trying for like a lot of the right reasons. And so I think acknowledging that is really important. And also, Pro providing some safety and realizing, the space that you crave, your kids connect with that. So that can even be like a point of awareness where I think rather than you trying to like tell your kids, you have to, you have to do less in this example even, but really like having just open conversation around like getting to the heart of the why, getting to the root cause. Do you feel too busy? How does it feel when, you're going to back activities? Lately you've been having activities 5 days a week. What would you think about if we cut that down to 3 days a week? I've really been thinking about that and doing similar things in my own life. And so not taking on the weight, even in this instance of figuring it all out on yourself, but like collaborating towards a solution and towards figuring out what might feel better. For parents, like I said, I know we have a lot going on, but I think even those small pockets of time, being really intentional with it and knowing what you're going to do with the time. So rather than, taking 5, 15 minutes and it having, an unproductive outcome. Maybe you're doing something that feels pseudo productive. You're responding to emails or scrolling on social or whatever that is for you. But instead, knowing, hey, I'm going to read this poem when I have 5 minutes, or I'm going to, reflect on this. If you're religious, maybe it's a prayer. You could, do a breathing exercise, like really know what it is that you're going to do that feels rejuvenating to you, as opposed to just, letting the 5 minutes come and go with no intention.
No, something that I would like to talk about here as well is parents think that to be a perfect parent, they have to do it by themselves. It's like, I can't ask for help because that means I'm not the perfect parent. But the best athletes in the world have coaches. The biggest business owners in the world spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and continued education. Tiger Woods, best golfer in the world, I think had 11 coaches or has 11 coaches. So to be the best isn't having to do it on your own. It's getting the help that you need to focus. And so, well, again, I'm kind of losing my question there, But like even me myself, I have currently, I think, 4 or 5 different coaches helping me in different areas of my life. And I'm sure you have different coaches that are helping you. So how can we get parents to understand that asking for help, asking for coaching doesn't mean that they're not good at what they do.
Yeah.
It means that they are good at what they are trying to do and are trying to get better. Would you like to respond to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I appreciate that so much because it does make me think as well about confusion around what coaching actually even is. Because I think sometimes people think of it more as a mentor where you're going to come and like do what I'm doing or do my exact model, which coaching is digging into yourself. The reason why we start with your own goals and your clarity about where you want to go is that is the roadmap. We are collaborating towards figuring out the pathway that's going to make the most sense for your real life to get you where you want to go. And even as you mentioned all of these other people, it's like it's good to realize, Tiger Woods coaches, that doesn't mean they're better than him. Oprah has had coaches her whole career. It doesn't mean that they are, mentoring, showing her the way. It's digging in deeper to your inner knowing, to your own guide for your path that you want to create. So I think that's an important distinction. And also that as we're talking about all of these people with coaches and multiple coaches, it's not like you know about that. People don't necessarily go out and go on a platform talking about their coach. So all of this, if you're really focused on your own development and growth, it just asking yourself, is it worth investing on deepening your knowledge, your growth, your ability to go further faster than you would on your own, knowing that the people who you role model yourself after, they likely have coaches and you might not have any idea that they do.
Beautiful. And this is probably a great time to, would you please say out loud how people can get a hold of you if something you have said, some of the nuggets that you have shared inspires them to maybe work with you or find out more about you? Please say that out loud. And of course, everything is down in the show notes also.
Yes, thank you. My website is just coachingwamy.com. I'm most active on LinkedIn, where it's just my name, Amy Pierre-Russo. But like I said, I'll definitely make sure to share that free resource, which is just 10 easy ways to incorporate more harmony in your life right now, just so you have some easy options to access. And so hopefully that's a beneficial resource for your audience.
Yes, and that is also down in the show notes. So all you have to do, fans and friends, is just go down there and click on it, and you'll be able to get to Amy's resource there as well. Yeah.
So when we talk about homeschooling, we talk about the 3 biggest myths, and because everybody, no matter how many questions they have, these 3 come up, and it's like my kid's going to be weird and not socialized. I don't have time, and I'm not smart enough to be a teacher. When people are coming to you, what are your big 3? Because it's like, everybody's going to have something different, but maybe what are the big 1 or 2 that people who come to you are really looking for help with?
Yeah. The don't have time, that one, that one definitely is relatable. I would say it's I don't have time and I don't know if I'm gonna commit. And so for the don't have time, really it's one of those things where I feel like really intentionally paying more attention on the front end is beneficial in the long run. And in the long run, it creates more time, more space, more of an intentional lifestyle, really, in the long run. But yes, you do have to upfront, like tend to those things that you've been putting on the back burner. And then as for the lack of belief that you'll commit and really be present, I honestly do try to make it super easy. So it's not this huge time commitment. You have a workbook guide that you can kind of do self-paced alongside the coaching sessions. So really recognizing that it's never too, like you're not too far gone. These are things that the support exists to get you to that ideal lifestyle that you're envisioning for yourself. And like we've been talking about throughout the episode, you don't have to do it alone. You can lean into some resources to get there.
I love that. That's beautiful. Perfect. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you had written down? It's like, oh, I want to make sure I say this today, or I want to make sure that we talked about this today.
You know, one thing that comes to mind is just that the way that you find support in one aspect of your life doesn't necessarily have to copy paste across all parts of your life. And so maybe you are a really social person and that feels really good to you. Yet with your own business, you need some time to look inward, to reflect, to be on your own journal. And so just encouraging people to spend some time thinking through with whatever the spot is in their life that feels like it needs the most attention, that they really think about what would be supportive and knowing that it might look different than the other things that you do in your life.
I like that as well, because we talk about that with children all the time, right? The way we learned is not the way that your child probably learned, right? Or the way we learn one subject isn't the way we learn another subject. And that parallels basically what you were saying, is that, you know, how we do different parts of our life might need a different approach. Thank you so much, Amy. This has been a great conversation. You have given us some nuggets and some information for our audience. And I know that there is some people out there who are like, oh, I can take this away and now do this. And I can take this away and do this. And if Amy has inspired you, get a hold of her as well.
So I would like to thank you also for being here. There are so many people who have these issues and sometimes figure it out. Sometimes they get coaches, but then they just take that and they keep it to themselves and they go about their life. But you are out here and you are sharing it. You went out and you found this and you fought your dragon and you got your gold. And instead of just keeping it within, you're here sharing it with the community and you're sharing it out in the world. And that's the hero's journey. And that is a hero actually out there making the world a better place. And that is what you're doing. So thank you for being on our show today. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for putting yourself out there in a way to be a hero for more of us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for this opportunity and for spending this time with you each.
You are very welcome. And it was a pleasure having you. Audience, you know, it's time to share, right? And like and subscribe and review, all those things. If you had value from this show of bringing education home, please make sure you're sharing it with other people in your life. And there's a whole bunch of episodes. I can't believe that we are over 180 published episodes right now. We already have 190 on the books. We're close to 200. So we are super excited about sharing all of these different things for you, your family, to up level and become the best you can be by raising healthy, happy, and successful kids.
And she hasn't taken this away from me yet. So when you do share, be sure to @ somebody in the comments, because then you get a share and a comment. And that helps get this message out to more people, even to the person that you're attempting to share it with. So be sure again to comment if you want to share it to other people. Say something nice about our guest, about what's happening here, and be sure that more people can get this information.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts